Now. It continues to grow as technology grows. The most common place for online bullying is social media. And 10 years ago, kids didn't have as many social media sites as they do today.
It is tragic enough for a mother to lose a child. When you're the person who finds your child's body, it's unimaginable.
My daughter was bullied so much, she committed suicide. She hung herself.
Diana Corral says her daughter Maya was cyberbullied by peers and couldn't take it anymore. Diana said on August 24th she had a premonition something was wrong, so she went to Maya's home on the southwest side.
I found her hanging in the closet by a USB cord, and I had to take her down. I had to untie her cold, lifeless body.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Claudio Cerullo. I'm so very excited. My new book arrived today, Inside the Mind of a Bully, From Victim to Advocate. Let me share a little bit about why this book is so meaningful and why it was written. Over the last 2 years, I really wanted to take a close look at this pervasive public health issue of bullying here in the country and abroad. I was a victim growing up in middle school, and it was very tragic for me, and it's tragic for a lot of kids. So, I really looked at a lot of the research and all of the case studies that we helped many kids and families around the country. And the book is really designed for educators, administrators, mental health professionals, law enforcement, lawyers, doctors that really want to truly understand, why does someone do what they do within the bullying world? Why do they racially profile? Why is there violence in the school? Why is there physical, cyber, emotional bullying? All of the things that everyday conversation that you have with your children and we have with ours, I wanted to really, get to the nuts and bolts of it in a really short, condensed book. I didn't want to make it too long. I wanted it to be a real strong resource for anyone who says, hey, what do I do? When do I do it? So this is out. It's 14 chapters. It's extensive, though, within the 14 chapters. It's going to launch on Monday, Lulu Publishing. And we hope that you'll support us. It's lulu.com, and just search Inside the Mind of a Bully, From Victim to Advocate.
Welcome in, everybody. This is the first ever book launch for Inside the Mind of a Bully, From Victim to Advocate. I have my good friend, and I can't speak so much about his accolades because he'll be able to give you a lot more than I can. But my name is Tony Cotillo from Rise and React Media. This is Dr. Claudio V. Cerullo, and this is an exciting time. As you've seen in that video, there are so many stories, and they're painful. To be quite honest, and Dr. Cerullo deals with them every single day, which is the reason why he decided to write this book, to help people. He's given back so much in the community. He was a victim himself. He's going to tell you stories that he sees, people he's talked to, things he's been able to do to be able to help. But this book is very symbolic, especially now, because Dr. Cerullo, like we tell everybody, remote learning, remote instruction, whether we agree with it or not, and there's so many issues with it when it comes to cyberbullying. But first, I want to welcome you to the spotlight tonight. I want to thank you for all the work that you've done. And I want to introduce everybody to the audience, and tell them about your book, tell them where you got started. Let's just have an open dialogue about cyberbullying and who Dr. Claudio V. Cerullo really is.
Tony, thank you so very much. I'm still not over. I spoke to that mother on the phone personally, whose daughter took her life, among hundreds of children, those age 8 to 19 and adults. And in your opening segment, I didn't even know you were going to do that or show that clip. And I immediately, get that anxiety and that trigger to be protective of a child and of a family. And there really is an injustice when we go back to this topic that's not new to me. It's not new to many. And certainly now in this virtual and digital age, it continues to play havoc. We see it locally. We see it politically. We see it in and out of schools. We see it on the playing field. We see it on Twitter. We see it on most social media venues. I don't think there is a case in bullying that we haven't, experienced over the last 10 years of working in the organization and then 30 years of researching this topic. The book itself was designed really to be concise, to help people, parents, teachers, administrators, those in mental health, those in community policing, law enforcement, those in the legal field, those who are grandparents, guardians, to look at this issue and say, what can we do operatively to address it? Because the reality, Tony, is it's not going away. And I don't care who you are in a category. You're either going to be that bully, that bystander, or that victim. So we are hoping to promote more upstanders, those who are going to step in and say it's not tolerated and it has to stop. But in order to do that, we have to design an infrastructure for learning and for climate change within a school or organization that focuses on that empathy and social justice, which we're seeing it every day. We just got out of a political election, and we're kind of still feeling the aftermath and the vibrations of that. And, are we the United States of America, or are we the divided United States of America? We're still trying to figure it out. And, there's a lot of trauma and people are facing it. In this pandemic, certainly and virtually, remote learning, we're not immune from it, and nor are the children. Hopeful that this book will be one more support resource for anyone who buys it, whether they were a victim, whether they were the bully, or whether they want to be change, systemic change, to help bridge this gap to promote kindness. I know, Tony, it's very simplistic, right? Like, how hard is it for you and I to simply be friends, and no matter who you are or what you wear or who you support or who you root for in sports, at the end of the day, we could cohabitate together and say, Tony, I respect you for being a Philadelphia Eagles fan. I respect you for your political and religious affiliation. But we're friends, Tony. I have to respect that because that's who you are. And in the world of reciprocity, you respect me for my ethnicity, who I support, who I vote for. But it seems simple, right? I mean, it's not very hard. And the design model of this book is to try looking at the theory, case studies, to bring people together to promote kindness. And I know it's a challenging task. It's not an easy one, but I'm hoping it's one more piece to the puzzle, because we're losing children and adults daily to this issue that goes well beyond the classroom.
It's been perfectly said. It really has. And for everybody that doesn't know, again, lulu.com, Inside the Mind of the Bully. If you'd like to see the book, you'd like to purchase the book through Amazon, through Barnes & Noble, just do us a favor. Let us know. Give us a review. Let us know what you thought. Let us know what kind of feeling it gave you, what you got out of the book, why you purchased the book. Let Dr. C know what's going on, what kind of issues you have. And I want you to open up to everybody real fast, because not everybody knows the person like I know the person. But working with you for a while, we've been friends for a long time now, and we kind of know what, way each other are wired. But I don't think everybody knows your backstory about why this came about, why Teach Anti-Bullying was created, why Claudio Cerullo wanted to become an anti-bullying advocate. You always talk about how you were a victim, and a lot of people, you coincide with a lot of people, and they buy into you simply because they feel a connection, because these people are bullied every day, whether it be kids, adults, athletes, law enforcement officials. Doesn't really matter. Nowadays, everybody has a bullying issue. So let everybody know what your background is and why, what happened to you as a child, basically how this became your vision.
Well, look, I believe I was a Catholic accident. My parents had me at 43. I have siblings who are 19, 17, and 14, respectively. And we emigrated to this country in 74. Gerald Ford had just been president. He took the oath of office. And here we are, we arrived to Pennsylvania. My father had family there. And you have to realize that, anyone who understands immigration and understands where anybody comes from in the world, they come to a new place to seek opportunity, to be enculturated, right? To be a part of a community. But there's challenges, and there's challenges today, whether it's race, ethnicity, how you look, your character, what you play, the sports you're in, who you are, you're smart, tall, short, everything becomes a profile. And we look you up and down and we say, yeah, this is somebody I want to hang out with. This is somebody I may want to torture. This is somebody I may want to be a friend. This is somebody I may want to take his or her lunch money, backpack, sneakers, iPhone, whatever the case may be. I was one of those young kids who loved to play in the streets and wouldn't come home until my mom yelled until the lights went out and it was 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I would be playing the games that we used to play, flashlight tag and kick the can. Those in our generation, there was no cell phones. No. And we just played and we enjoyed that. The difference in my childhood was that, I didn't have a lot. And like many kids who grow up with immigrant families, you're given a certain number of things and you focus on those things: shoes, a nice coat, a hat, gloves. I didn't have any of those things. I had the basic essentials, but nothing more, nothing greater. No, I had Bobos, right? I make a funny song about it, right? Remember in my generation, it was Bobos. They cost $1.99, make your feet smell fine. And I do this and sing this song all over the world. And middle school was like, it's funny. It sounds great. It rhymes perfectly. What are Bobos? So I explained that to them. And they're no name brand shoes, and people would ridicule those. And I didn't have, cool hoodies today like you have, Nike and all this stuff. And as you get through elementary, because in elementary, it doesn't matter if you have ketchup on your shirt or you have glasses, everybody kind of mixes in. But it's when you transition, like many kids, the 30 million, middle schoolers in America that transition to 6th grade. And now all of a sudden I'm in 6th grade. I'm this little fish in this big middle school with 7th and 8th graders. And I go to school and I have, ridiculous clothes that don't match, shoes that are just no name brands, and, a hoodie that was duct taped together. And I was this Italian Guinea, Wabdago kid that couldn't speak English very well. So it all started with that. He's stupid. He's retarded. He can't speak English, can't do math. And, it starts to wear on you, but you don't tell anybody. Like today, right? It's a silent threat. I came home. I didn't tell my mom or dad because my dad would have beat me worse. And my mom, wouldn't have really understood, even though she would have been upset about it. But she would have appealed to my father to say, go out there and fight those kids. And I wouldn't do that. And the trauma really struck in 6th grade on a walk home that was about 6 blocks. I grew up in a very athletic-based community, Easton, Pennsylvania, known for Larry Holmes, the Crayola Factory, Lafayette, Lehigh football, and Easton-Peaburg rivalry. It's pretty noted. And kids one day saw me walk, and they knew the path or the course I would take and decided to launch some rocks at me. And about 2 or 3 rocks shattered my nose, my teeth. So years later, plastic surgery puts my nose together. I've had several surgical procedures for septoplast and rhinoplast and repair my teeth. And, we can make people look pretty, right? The problem, whether it's myself or anyone who's listening or anyone who's been a victim, and what I didn't have is social media, mind you, to follow me home. But those intrinsic scars, Tony, they are triggers to many, including myself. And the sad part, if you fast forward 36 years into the future, we create this thing called Facebook. And now these many folks that know me and knew me have children of their own, and they know what I do, and they apologize for some of the torment. Some, who'd have thought? And I'm very forgiving about it. I understand kids are kids, but these scars often take years, sometimes never heal, and some, unfortunately, Tony, the scars get so bad that, we have teen suicide, which is now one of the second leading cause of death among those 13 and 19, predominantly to something that we didn't grow up with, which is social media. And ironically, last night on Netflix, we all sat down as a family and watching The Social Dilemma. If you haven't watched The Social Dilemma, you can understand the corruption to the mind and the corruption to the soul of what these social media outlets truly want to do to you, to me as adults, but let alone children, tweens, and teenagers, to really play havoc with mental health and with your entire being.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a very moving movie. If nobody's ever seen that, it definitely relates to what
Yeah.
we deal with as a society. And again, everybody checking. There's tons of people that are watching right now. If you want to ask Dr. Cerullo a question about the book, you share a story, please let us know. Just type it in the comments. Right now, we have Melissa says, I've been looking at your Facebook here and there, Dr. Cerullo, since you and Daniela did a PD workshop when I worked for the DCIU. I look forward to reading your book. I was bullied at my Catholic school and high school and had suicidal thoughts later in life. Now I am a mom of a 3.5-year-old, and knowing how mean girls can be, I am fearful of her experiencing the same thing I did. Again, Melissa, you're absolutely right. I mean, Claudio, I know, Dr. C, you could speak to that. I know myself. I understand. I'm just a host here. You're the guy on the spotlight, but I have 3 children of my own, so I understand what this is. I understand what happens. It's different from when me and you were growing up. Like we said, it really is. There's so many different outlets for this to come into. There's so many things as a parent that you have to pay attention to. I mean, just some of the statistics. I mean, when you think about it, listen, millions of students are bullied each year, which can tragically lead to suicide, which you talked about, or have lifelong consequences on an individual's self-esteem and well-being. Now, the virtual schooling at an all-time high, these situations will be occurring rapidly, and we've seen it every single day. So what I'm going to ask you is, how can we prevent this unfortunate situation from happening? And number 2, how can we cope if it does?
Well, first of all, thank you, Melissa. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that. And I'm hopeful that your 3-year-old daughter will grow to be very healthy. My daughter, if you know on Facebook, she's now 17. And she was victim to that, among many other situations that occurred via multiple social media outlets, which we can discuss some of them so that at least I can give you some insight on how to protect your child as she grows. It is very difficult and very different when it comes to boys and girls. This is not, everyone says to me all the time, the infamous question is always, how do we stop it? What are the tools? What do we do? And it's a great question to start, Tony, but it's a very difficult one to address because there's so many variables to it and it takes so many together. And, if you look at the highest office in the land, for example, to be president of the United States, and you say, how do I bring people together now who just don't like one another? So, Tony, if you and I don't like one another for whatever reasons, whether it's sports, my attire, your ethnicity, my race, your gender, the first question is, you may never come to like me and we may never agree, but that doesn't mean that we have to hate each other. We have to coexist. And it takes a lot of pieces to that. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of energy in the infrastructure in school, transitioning to home, to the parents at home, to the parents communicating with the other parents who either son or daughter may be the victim or the bully or the bystander. The people have to talk, and we're not doing a good job of discussing openly how we feel about something. It's just hatred and yelling and frustration and anger and destruction and retaliation, but we're not sitting down together to discuss and deliberate and resolve conflict and say, what is it about you or me that you don't like, and perhaps maybe you and I can come to some concession to bridge a gap. There's always, in any conflictual situation, there's a way to at least talk about it rather than, make it worse to the point where someone, a child, an adult, feels compelled to take it out on someone else, either work, their school, or themselves. And so, unfortunately, Tony, as you know, we're not paying enough attention to it until it's too late, until there's tragedy, whether it's Sandy Hook or another school shooting or, a suicide. Then we talk about it. Then it makes the news. But what have we done proactively to prevent it prior to that? Where is the discussion? Where is the professional development leading up to it? We only talk about it, during that particular thematic unit in a month, or when tragedy strikes. And I think that's where, when we talk about bullying or any other pervasive public health issue, and this is the disconnect in mental health versus medical health, we have to hit it before it becomes a virus and spreads to the point where it causes more destruction than good. And I think this is nothing new. This has been going on for years. Bullying is relatively new since 2006 as a topic. But, people not being nice to each other, that's nothing new, right? That's everyday life. Everyday life. You get up, you get your coffee, you're in the car, you're driving a car, somebody cuts you off, you're at work, this goes on and on and on. And we don't do a very good job. So, the first line of this particular question, Tony, is we have to implement infrastructure for more conversation and make things, not so much about grades or standardized testing. It's about coexisting in a society where people can get along, so that people want to come to school. People want to be part of, working for an organization, be part of a team. You can't hate people for who they are or what they want to be.
That's true. And I think this symbolized, Trey's checking in. I think it's a great comment. He says, just got the book, Dr. C. Can't wait to read it. It takes a man and a leader to do what you have been doing. And I thank you, and may God bless you. And I think this is huge, because the line, it takes a man and a leader to do what you have been doing, is so symbolic nowadays, because there aren't enough leaders willing to stand up and to take this problem head on, which is something you have done. So, that being said, it's a good segue to talk about, let's talk about some of the organizations and the campaigns you have run in the past. You've done a sneaker program, you've talked on Capitol Hill, you've been all over. Look, and this is not to bolster an ego. This is just to show everybody, how big this problem is, and the volumes and the lengths to which you have taken in order to try to take this head on. So elaborate on that a little bit, if you could.
Well, you message, and I thank my dear friend Trey Hill. I truly do. He's a wonderful person. I won't divulge his profession, but he protects people daily, and I'll leave it at that. You mentioned leadership, and many have lost their lives. Bobby Kennedy, Dr. King, people who have risen to bring people together, some way, somehow, stand up for someone else, always become the butt of a joke, ridicule, or potential violence. And we can't be fearful of that. If you are an advocate and you have conviction and you have passion and you believe that you are in a world as a father or a leader, you have that accountability to protect children, to protect rights of others, to protect individuals so they can go to work, they can go to school in peace. No one should disrupt that. No one has the right to do that, and we challenge everyone to do it. But I'm one person. We're very small. I'm one small individual, and that's why I challenge other people to not come together, whether you believe in bullying or you believe in a president or a leader. You believe that people should be in peace. I think everyone should agree with that. Wherever you are in the world, you should be able to wake up and do whatever you enjoy doing and look in the mirror and say, I feel good about who I am. No matter who I am or what I do, you should do it in peace and have that right to do it in peace. And we're fighting hard. I served on Governor Christie's task force in New Jersey. We passed legislation in 2012. It took the death of Tyler Clemente, a Rutgers University student, who was homosexual, and his privacy was invaded. He committed suicide to pass legislation. Same thing in Delaware. And we're in Pennsylvania, and State Representative Stephen Kinsey, we're still fighting to get legislation passed in the state of Pennsylvania, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And you're right, we were on Capitol Hill. We're still trying to get legislation. And if people don't agree, if the bill's too long, I don't want to put more constraints on public school system. What constraints? What is there not to agree upon when it comes to protecting the welfare of children and the teachers who work hard every day, in fact, even harder today, 16 hours a day, to teach your children, my children online? They are underpaid and overworked, And this is why they need to be in a safe learning environment. There's no debate there. What is there to debate? Pass the legislation. We're just trying to make sure that there's professional development to educate our teachers, to make sure that the children are protected and the teachers are educated on the signs and symptoms. That's all. It's very simplistic, and we're still fighting for that legislation. It's been 10 years, and we can't get a bill passed in Pennsylvania. So, I'm not going to give up on that. Today, I sent my book out. I signed it to President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden, and I sent a copy. I wrote the president an extensive letter, explaining why I want an executive order to raise the level of anti-bullying awareness in this country, not just in October, but to discuss this topic all year round, to bring people together, to bridge the racial divide. This is not just about kids on a schoolyard, playground, or on an athletic field or in a classroom. This is about human behavior that is now disconnected and desensitized based on who we are as a race, as a gender, as human beings. We are so disconnected. It's just tragic to me that when people have children today, I feel bad. I think to myself, what are these children, yours, mine? Mine are old teenagers, but the young children today, what are they going to face in 2030, 2035? I mean, you think it's bad now? Imagine 15, 20 years from now. Fast forward.
It's scary. It is. I mean, when you think about it, you obviously tons of different topics and tons of points that you pointed out, but you say, I've said that statement so many times. I'm fearful of when my kids have kids and what society is going to be like, because it is. I mean, the thing is, I'm trying to explain it the proper way here, but we mentioned schooling so many different times, and now, who knows when we're going to be back in the classroom, full time. We have no idea. But that, being as it may, the virtual world has just opened up a whole new, agenda when it comes to bullying. It really has. I've heard numerous stories about it. And another thing we haven't even touched on, I'd like to touch on too, is virtual gaming. The kids with the video games. It's not just the cell phones. It's the Xbox and the PlayStation, and the consistent headphones, and it could be something indirectly, right? It could be something to maybe somebody sensitive and they're calling him a bad player. Or, they kick him out of the room. I mean, I've honestly, being full transparent here. Now, I've had my son upset a couple days because he said, "Dad, well, I don't understand. They're not letting me in to play anymore. Like, is it because I'm a bad player?" And I'm like, dude, is this really what you're worried? Like, why are we worried about? But unfortunately, this is what they're worried about. This is the way they're wired nowadays, and it's just so many different avenues that are out there. Now, a good question here, Vincent says, "What's the main takeaway of your new book? In other words, what do you feel is the most important thing for children, especially to take away from your work?" And just to let everybody know, the reason why we're doing it in this format, which we're going to do more of this format, is normally me and Dr. C would be in a Barnes & Noble or we'd be in a coffee shop and we'd have banners behind us and he'd be able to sign books and shake your hand. But unfortunately, we can't do that nowadays. So this is the best we can do. And I think it's great because now we can reach you, whether you live in California, Las Vegas, Texas, Philadelphia, New Jersey, doesn't matter. Everybody can be, everybody can be involved. So again, to get back to that, what would you say, was the main takeaway of your new book?
Well, let me first of all congratulate Vincent, and Vincent's my son, and I appreciate him, signing on here. And let me tell you what Vincent, and what makes me so proud of him is that the one takeaway from the book, and he just started to read it. I think he's on page 40, and he's giving me his own constructive criticism, and I'm open to any criticism, good, bad, or indifferent. But one thing he probably took away from that is that if you want to be the change, then be the change. And what he did in his own local high school as a 10th grader is he started an empowerment club. And we've started many of them in the Delaware Valley region to bring kids together and to bring about a safe school climate and a safe school culture. And he's doing that. And he meets with his group of young people, young high school students every Tuesday after school to talk about empathy and anti-bullying relations and to build a climate. And it takes young people like Vincent and others and his peers to do that. And the book does tell you, be the change you want to see. I'm one person. He's one person. He has to build an army of people, of young people like him. It's his future. He's going off to college in 3 years. It's his life in the next, it's going to be his children, the grandchildren forthcoming. This is what the book, it models. It's just theory. This is stuff we write in any book. It's a recipe, but the recipe is execution. It's the ingredients. It takes people to bring their skill sets without envy, without conviction, without attitude towards one another, and say, "Tell me, Tony, you're good at this. Help me out." Bring these young people together. This is what I want to do. This is how things got started in this country, right? This is how we built. This is how we brought people together during the civil rights movement, during the Civil War and thereafter. And now in 2021, we're still trying to figure it out. This is why we study history. And if we don't learn from these social injustices and inequities, and disparities within communities around the country and around the world, we continue to go down. We're not going anywhere. We're not going up. And it takes young people to do that. I don't want to say we're old school or old timers, because we're not. We are the people with the education, and we're giving it to our young people. But what are our young people doing with it? Especially during this pandemic. Are they wanting to be leaders? Are they wanting to be the next scientist? The next mathematician, the next engineer? Or I don't know what they want to do, but this is what we have to do as parents. We're obligated. We're accountable to that as grandparents. It is a topic for hours of discussion, but I can't get around that. In any school around the country, it starts with the young kids. They have to be empowered, like your son. Yeah, Tony, it's hard to change how they feel. My daughter, for years, accidentally was kicked in the nose in middle school. Her nose was broke. The cartilage, it's very simple to break someone's nose, just like mine. I never put ice on it. I had this major ski slope, and they always say, "Hey, ask Claudio, the nose always knows." That was the tagline in all classes. Ask him, the nose always knows. And my father, became butt of the joke. And I would say, "Dad, Papa, I want to get my nose." "What nose?" "Oh, no, that's a Roman nose. You were born. That's beautiful. That's the way." He didn't know. I never told him. I threw my bloody clothes away. He had no idea what I was talking about. And I didn't tell him. But, this is what we have to do, Tony. It's not easy. But your son, like many, my daughter wants plastic surgery. She wants to fix that nose because everybody makes fun of her nose. I said, "Bella, you're beautiful just the way it is. But if that's something that you want to do, we can explore, because perhaps you're having issues breathing, but not because you think that people are making fun of you." We're not changing how you look because we have to teach empowerment, Tony, like your son. Hey, there's disappointments in life. We're not always going to we're not always going to win the game. We're not always going to get the job we want. We're not always going to get the boyfriends or girl. We're going to have to learn to face rejection and cope with that. And I know your son, just like anybody else, takes it personally. Maybe they think he's not that great, so he's not letting them in the gaming world, right? Or whatever the case may be. But that's okay. I'm sure you encourage your son to say, "You know what, son, you're good at what you do. Keep doing what you do. Don't worry about how others see you." It's easy for us as parents to say that, but you don't know how he feels inside. And everybody wants to be a superstar. Everybody wants to be a Tom Brady. Everybody wants to be a LeBron James. But we have to like each other and who we are every day, no matter what. And we love our kids, but it's hard. And that's why you have to keep empowering them, keep encouraging them, keep driving, man. It's like Rocky Balboa says, right? Keep hitting life. Life keeps hitting you, but don't stop. It's not easy, but you got to be there. And for the challenge, Tony, for a lot of these young kids today is they don't have anybody in their corner. They don't have anybody there pushing them. And that's where it takes an army and a village and teachers out there fighting for these kids every day.
That's a good point. I mean, single parenthood is very prevalent nowadays, and that's what happens. And you have, whether you have a single mother or a single father, for that matter, doesn't matter. And you're working 9 to 5, you're working maybe 9 to 9, 12-hour shifts, and you got to hope that your child is home doing what they're supposed to do, and you can't be there for them. You may not be able to answer the phone, depending on what kind of job you can work. So, what I want to ask you too is you mentioned about Tom Brady, which is a great segue into sports bullying, because one of the biggest avenues and one of the biggest, reasons in sports is sports psychology. It's one of actually my daughter's going to college for it. It's something that you could say right now that we know that it is taking off because of bullying is one of the issues. Think about it as a minor leaguer. Think about it, not even at the minor leagues. Let's talk about it as a peewee level. I'm talking about maybe the guy doesn't throw the right way. And I've been a youth sports coach for many years. I know you have done the same thing. You work with your son, you work with kids, and you watch. And when that one kid shows up, he may not be gifted like everybody else. And right away it starts. Nobody wants to pick him on their team, especially if you're playing basketball. It's like, you have to make sure nobody wants to take him on his team. So let me ask you something. In the sports world, whether it be youth or adult, what do you think is the biggest problem besides saying we know everybody wants to be a superstar, but why do you think bullying exists? Is it something that stems from when they're a child up to adulthood, or is it something that indirectly just affects everybody because of how we're wired?
Tony, I'm going to tell you something. It's not embarrassing to tell you. I was a varsity letterman in 3 different sports, and I was so afraid of the bullies in 8th grade that I would purposely and intentionally run the plays the wrong way. I would purposely do that. Now, you might say, what's wrong with you? That's so stupid. I did it out of fear, and the fear of the hidden talent that I knew I had from the streets and being fast and being an athlete. But I was afraid of what they would do to me after practice. So I figured the best way to avoid being bullied was to show that I was just not a very good athlete until they kind of graduated and went on, and I ended up doing my thing, and then, kind of exploded into the sports world and wrestling and track and football. These kids today, first of all, the pressure of parents pushing their kids to be the next Tiger Woods, LeBron James, Tom Brady, you name it. The pressure, the anxiety it causes kids, the pressure of what they see. Now, go back to the social dilemma of what they see. I have to be, the next Mahomes. I have to be the next Dak Prescott or whomever is overwhelming for kids. So, in my generation, androgenic drugs was so big. The steroid abuse to be powerful. Now it's all about speed. It's all about height. It's all about your hands. It's all about agility. Speed is what kills. And these kids, and you're right, I see it with my son playing football. I see the envy. I see you're not going to take my position. You keep your mouth shut, you focus, and you keep doing what you have to do, and don't let those, this is where the mental portion of it, the psychology is, to focus on what you're assigned to do, your position, you do it well, and you prove what you have to prove on the field. The challenge is what's going on behind the scenes. Again, you and I didn't have this growing up. The social media, what's happening on Snapchat that someone's going to say about your son or daughter or my children, etc., to cause havoc, or what's happening with the coaches and what are the coaches not doing to address that? Where's the sportsmanship? We had an issue in our own community where things were said about another team prior to the game. Very, harsh remarks, ridiculing another team. Why would that not have been addressed prior to the game? Why would somebody allow that to happen? See, and this is why kids see, they watch, they're modeled by their coaches. And in youth sports, it's off the charts. And you're not even paid to be a youth coach. And the coach or coaches are being bullied by the parents. I want my son to start. He's a quarterback. I say he's a running back. No, he's a quarterback. He's got to start. He's going to go to college. He's going to be the next whatever. No, he's not. So it starts and it starts and it starts to the point where you say, you know what? I'm not getting paid for this. You want to be the coach, you be the coach. The pressures to get the scholarship in high school, to get the scholarships in college, parochial and private schools. It's the athletic intentions, or they're losing sight of what is it really about. It's about education. It's about your education, because sports aren't always going to be there. You've seen it. How many professional athletes get hurt and they have nothing to fall back on? Nothing. So I tell our own son, who plays in numerous sports, one, we didn't want burnout. He was running all the time, running cross country, track, indoor. Says, Vincent, you're going to be like J.J. Watt's mom. She has 3 sons. You're going to look at various sports, try them all, wrestling, football, try something different, basketball. Break up that mental, anguish of just trying to be the best at one. Try it and then see where you excel. But you don't put the pressure on kids to be the next whatever, whoever. You provide the support base and see what happens and where it leads them. But at the end of the day, the most important thing any child can get out of anything they do is a learning experience and that education.
No, you're absolutely right. You bring up a great point about being even a coach, and that takes you from the youth part to being an adult. It happens in both facets, right? Dan checking it says, number one for kids should always be having fun while playing sports. My son is 5, and I want him to know you're absolutely right. And Claudia, you bring up a great point because I say this all the time, and this is no knock on anybody. I coached softball for many years. My daughter is a junior in college right now. And if I had $1 for every time a parent told me growing up, my kid's going to get a scholarship, she needs to play, she needs this, she needs that. 1% of every kid I ever coached went to a Division I school on a scholarship for that sport. Listen, at the end of the day, it is about having fun. It's you have to learn. But again, I coach right now, the group I coach, they're 13 and 14-year-old kids. And now it's like, you're not kids anymore. You guys are adults. You are young men. You have responsibilities, right? But again, it's keeping a positive structure on the sideline, not getting down, not letting people talk about your teammate, sticking up for your teammate, staying together. And I think it's a huge point. You bring out great points because the sports game is so hard. It's so hard. And you're right. Everybody's so concentrated on that scholarship. One of the best movies I remember with James Caan was The Program. Right. And again, the linebacker was supposed to be a nut, right? And he tears his ACL and he never plays again. And what does he have? Nothing. He didn't go to class. The teachers let him skip everything because you're going to be a star. You're going to be a star. And then this is what happened. So a huge takeaway when we talk about it.
In Friday Night Lights, if you saw Friday Night Lights, the amount of bullying that went on there, as a head football coach in Texas, and what he was willing to do to win at whatever cost, the borders on just mental and emotional abuse of an athlete truly is depicted in many sports and playing fields around the country, and various people who do that.
Absolutely. And David checking in says, what is one of the most important parts of your book? Obviously, I think there's 14 chapters, if I'm not mistaken, and every single one of those chapters means something specific. So if you had to pick one or a part of the book, and I know the whole thing's important. I don't want to take away from that, but if there was one thing specifically, what would you put up?
I truly think the most important part of the book is looking at the suicide tendencies of children, looking at the signs and symptoms. Most people will look at, suicide in its stages and say, well, I saw that my son or daughter was withdrawn, then they were depressed. I don't know what's going on. I see a change in the circle of their friends. I see a drop in grades. They're not talking to me. They're in their room a lot. And then the next morning, they pop up and they say, hey, hi, Mom, Dad, I'm going to have a great day at school and I'm so excited to learn. And next thing you know, they don't come home from school and tragedy strikes. And, the investigation thereafter, in the discussion with parents, they say, but I saw my son or daughter was very happy today when he or she left. They were happy. They gave me a hug and kiss and said goodbye. They were happy. And I think that the misconception of when we look at kids and the struggle internally, whether it's me or many of the children who have taken their life, is that just because they look happy and they're smiling doesn't mean they're happy inside. And you have to ask questions. You have to look at the red flags. You have to get the help before suicide and tragedy strikes or strikes a school community. And it's one of the biggest misconceptions that you see when you study suicide behavior And just because you think about it and you idolize about it, you may not go forth with the act, but you have to look at the red flags, and there's many of them. And just because we see change in behavior and euphoria, oftentimes that could be the potential demise of someone's life, or taking of someone's life, or taking of others' lives, whether it is a school shooting. But the chapter that correlates to school shootings and suicide and hurting others or hurting themselves, to me, right now, it just last October of 2020, the CDC coined teen suicide the second leading cause of death right now. The second leading, and Tony, I don't know if you saw last week, I posted on Facebook, CNN reported 19 suicides to 19 children in a Nevada school district because of not just bullying itself, but online learning, digital learning, virtual learning. They're going through so much. They're trapped, Tony. They're trapped right now. People want to go out. Kids want to go out and play sports. They're limited. We're in a different world, a new normal, and kids are home online. Your kids, my kids, they're struggling. Teachers are struggling. Parents and grandparents are struggling right now. Stress is at its highest peak. Not just pandemic is taking life, but suicide is taking life. And they're doing it online still. They're doing it through Zoom bombing, gaming. Okay, they're doing it through 10-minute mail, which I can discuss. 10-minute mail. My daughter was victim to 10-minute mail. 10-minute mail, for those of you who are here, please look 10-minute mail up. It's basically an app that can send anonymous email to somebody to cause harm, to cause havoc. In my daughter's case, the perpetrator asked her to expose herself, or she would be victim to whatever this person wanted. She says, I have your nudes. I'm going to send them all over the web. There were no such nudes. My daughter came to me. She alerted me. And what happened is we contacted the local police department. And later, it turned out that 21 young ladies in 4 different municipalities were victim to this perpetrator. The state police, the PA attorney general, several local law enforcement. One child was the daughter of a local law enforcement officer, and all because of revenge on one of these 21 girls. 20 other girls were victim to 10-minute mail. It's an app, and it disappears. So when the police finally went to the perpetrator's house, we know who he is. We still know who he is. He got away with it. And why? Because that 10-minute email disappeared. But we know who he is. I know who he is, and those 21 girls know who he was.
It's such a scary proposition. And I don't care if you hear the same scenario 10 to 15 times, every single time, the feeling, whether as a parent or as a child, it gets stronger. It becomes more symbolic. So let me ask you this, for everybody watching out there, again, the signs, the warning signs. If you're a parent, what would you say to them? What would you say to them, even as an educator, to say, I understand that not everybody has in-session schooling right now, but when we did, even online, what could you say to them? What are some of the signs you feel you need to watch for when we talk about bullying or cyberbullying or anything of that matter?
Well, first of all, Tony, again, as a parent, for those of you who are parents and grandparents, a lot of us, a lot of grandparents, they're with their children, they're with the grandchildren. They don't know, but the one thing is you have to have conversation with your children. We have to restore a system of the days of the Waltons, the days of when, you would have dinner and say, tell me about what's going on at school. Tell me some of your friends. Tell me what you did. Tell me what you learned. And never just accept, oh, it was good, and then they leave. No, talk to them, man. Ask the critical questions. Tell me somebody you like today. Tell me something positive that happened today. Don't settle for just it was good and they leave and they're back on their phone because of that, again, social media addiction. Look at the warning signs, elementary. Look for missing possessions. You know how many cases we've worked with and the child would come, I lost my shoes. I lost my book bag. The parent would say, this is the third one I bought you. I mean, how can you lose it? They called the school. It's not a lost and found. It was taken. The iPhones, look for missing. Look for those patterns of repetitive behavior, the things that are happening, that frequency, that duration, that power base. Look for those emotional signs. Look for children who aren't playing with their siblings. Look for children who are abusing their siblings. Look for children that, I know this sounds ridiculous, who are taking their aggression out on their pets. We've seen cases where they've killed their animals, their dogs, their cats, their gerbils, because they're taking that aggression out on something, and they need to release that aggression that they're feeling inside because they don't know who to talk to. No one's listening. They try to communicate that to the teachers, the principal. No one's listening. Oh, go away. It's no big deal. Go back to play. And it continues, and it festers, right? It festers. We reach a breaking point. We reach a threshold till someone gets hurt. And that's what we have to try to minimize that, mitigate that before it reaches that threshold. Look for those emotional signs, not wanting to, those social signs as well. Tony, if you have kids that say, pick 3 kids, and maybe they're not the best players you have, but they participate and they're there and they give you their 110%. They might not be the starters or whatever. They all of a sudden say, Coach, I don't want to play anymore. I'm not going to come anymore. Well, now if you're a coach, your next question has to be, John, Joe, Zach, what's going on, son? Without embarrassing, take them to the side after practice, talk to them, say, what's going on, son? What's going on at school? Anything bothering you? Something at home, your brother, your sister, you could talk about grades. Something is affecting that child. If he or she doesn't want to participate in karate, in dance, in football, something is happening to them. If they're just quitting because they don't like the sport, okay, you can live with that. But if there's something underlining, or they're being tormented, or there's lack of supervision in the locker room, or they're being ridiculed online, behind the scenes, unaware of, to you as the coach, you need to figure that out. You need to find out. And this happens every day on Snapchat. On Snapchat, for those of you, I need you to make you aware of these predator apps, Snapchat, Tinder, High Calculator. Where's my phone? I'll show you this. For example, again, if we had a PowerPoint, I could share this, but on an iPhone, you'll see everybody has a calculator, right? You're doing your math on the calculator. And in my book, I have all these predator apps. The High Calculator looks just like the calculator on your phone, but you can download it. The High Calculator is an app that stores pornographic photos and images where teens are basically hiding videos that they record, child porn, and they're disseminating it to one another, not realizing they're committing a crime. My daughter was sent nudes one time by a perpetrator here in this town where I live, claiming to be an 8th grade boy. She gave it to me, said, Dad, look what I got. I went to the local police department. They traced it. The chain of causation to that phone went to 8 different phones till they captured the perpetrator. He happened to be a 42-year-old man using the app called Naked Pool. Naked Pool. It's an app. It's a game that girls will play with one another to expose. You take your clothes off. I take my clothes off until we have basically, some type of form of sexual relations via sexting and this app. You can go on and on. The High Calculator, Tinder, there's Snapchat. Again, with Snapchat, if your children, because again, that's what teens are doing. They don't pick up the phone like we did and have that rotary thing that takes 3 hours to make a phone call back in my day. But use another phone. Don't take a screenshot of it. It alerts the person on the other side that the image was in fact captured. Use another phone. Take a screenshot of it. Secure the email. Use it as evidence to help either your teacher, your administrator, your law enforcement. They're going to say, well, show me what happened. Show me the harassment. Where is it? Well, I don't have it. Well, no one's going to be able to help you without any evidence. So the first line of defense, Tony, is conversation. Speaking with your teacher, your son's teacher. You can see withdrawal. Email your son's teacher, guidance counselor. Talk to the principal. What happened during the day? Don't wait weeks after and it'll go away, you'll be okay, toughen up. Believe me, the last thing any parent wants, and we've seen many of them, children whose hair was set on fire, children who were assaulted, children who in Pottstown, if you remember Miss Samba 2 years ago, they gunned down, they were trying to kill her by gunning her down in Pottstown because they thought she was transgender. These are real stories. We've seen everything front to back. I've witnessed suicide. It's horrible. And the last thing you want is to come home or have your son or daughter not come home and be victim to some sign of bullying or online cyberbullying, and you did not prevent it or make that proper connection with somebody who could have helped prevent it. And we have to connect the dots. There's no amount of education, whether it's grades or sports, that's more vital than the welfare of your child. Nothing else matters except for your child's safety.
Well said. Well, honestly, well said. Trey, Trey Texan says, as parents, we need to build a trust and be able to talk to our children without criticism and hear what they are saying and letting them know we are here for them. But learn how to not ignore the signs. Dr. C is saying, I'm working on it myself, and I thank him for reminding me by his movement. Another great comment. Vincent checks it again, and again, we're running about 5 minutes left, but this is a great way to kind of segue towards the end of this first ever book launch here. He asks, how can a school as a student body help prevent this issue? And I'm going to give you 1B2 as well. Why are adults indirectly actually contributing to this issue? Because that's a problem as well.
That's the problem. And that's being the bystander. And Vincent has faced this barrier. If you, as a student body, you believe, you have, again, I don't care where you're from, your political affiliation, your gender, your race, whether you're the best athlete in your school or you're not the best athlete in your school, you can agree that we're all society. And we're missing it, man. We're missing it. We're basing everything on who's the most talented, who's the smartest. It's not about that. Embrace the talent that everyone has. That's your school community, and everybody works on that to move the school, to come together. But everybody has to believe in the mission, right? I mean, think about it. We inaugurated a new president, a few weeks ago, and everyone has to buy into a mission. The problem is, Tony, that again, not everybody's going to believe in the mission or the vision, but we have to believe that we are one country, we are one nation. We all have struggles. We all have to move together. We all have to work together, because a lot of us right now, right, via pandemic or via financial, economic, social, we're suffering. Everybody is suffering in some way, shape, or form. So the common denominator is what? It's working together, despite not always agreeing, but knowing it's our school, right? It's not the principal's school. It wasn't my school. It belongs to the kids. It's their school, and they have to make it and build a community that, one, is safe, and they benefit from what those teachers work so hard to do, and that is to educate. They're working 16 hours a day right now in this digital age, and they deserve the respect. They deserve the professionalism. They deserve the attention of the kids. And it's not happening. We know it's not happening. Kids are not engaged or disengaged or sleeping. There's academic dishonesty. These are things that, how do we bring it together? Kids have to do that. They have to. And again, he's one student. It takes an army. He's trying to build it through an empowerment club. But that's where people have to say, I'm with him. I want a better school. I want rigor. I want a safe school. That's what my parents pay taxes for. So I'm in a safe learning environment so I can get my education and go to college. I mean, who can't agree on that? Who can't agree on that? How many parents? I would love to meet the parents and say, no, I want to send my kids to a school where nobody learns and there's nothing but hostility and there's nothing but violence. I would like to meet those parents. Who would want to send their children to a school like that?
I agree. Who would? Honestly, and it's just we've said this throughout this whole hour. It's just unfortunately, it's the times that we're living in, and they're not getting any better. Hopefully, they don't get worse, and all we can do is move ahead and try to make them better. But again, inside the mind of a bully, from victim to advocate, hours fly by. Dr. C, you could talk for hours, and tremendous, and we'll do this again. For everybody that joined us tonight, I hope you took a nice dive deep into the mind of what cyberbullying and bullying is all about. Dr. Claudio V. Cerullo, check him out. Follow his fan page on Facebook. TeachAntibullying.org. Get involved in the movement. Help us through these trying times. His book, Lulu.com. We put it up here numerous amount of times during the show. You see it right there. All you need to go is to that address. We put it in the comments. And again, if you purchase the book, let Dr. C know. Let him know what you thought about it. Write a review. Give him a message. Let him send a personal thank you back to you as well, because this is what it's all about. This isn't just about the book. This is about, waking everybody up to the problem that we know exists and trying to all battle it head on. Trey says, thank you, Dr. C, from a cop. I'm so proud of you. That's tremendous. Dan, check it. I'll be buying a book for myself and my wife can read. Thanks for the great show. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And for everybody else, Dr. C, closing thoughts. Well, I'll open this up to you as we wind this show down. Let everybody know. Just give me your closing thoughts on the subject, on your book, and on yourself.
First of all, Tony, thank you so much for your time. You did an outstanding job. I'd like to thank everyone who joined us tonight, their questions. My friend Trey, I wasn't going to say you were a police officer, but I sincerely thank you for what you do. People think that police officers are bad. Hey, we got bad in everybody. We got bad people, all over the world. And you can't point your fingers at police officers because there are some really good police officers. He's happened to be one of them. And their job is not to profile, to push back or to shoot back. Their job is to preserve life. And I'm sorry for those who perhaps don't do that. And I'm sure he is as well. We don't always do the right things, but that doesn't mean all police officers are bad. And I truly appreciate his profession and what he does to help preserve life for many otherwise who couldn't, rest at night. I appreciate for those of you who purchased the book. I hope you do buy the book. I'm happy to sign it for you. I'm happy to talk to you. I'm very accessible. I pride myself on that. This is an ongoing topic. It's not going away. I can tell you that. People ask me all the time, kids are like, Dr. C, how do we fix it? How do we end it? And I'm sorry to say, I wish I had the magic, wand, and I wish if I had the power, to make it disappear and we could live in a happy land. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, and I cannot do that. So the way to do that is one person at a time, and it takes this village of people, you, me, Tony, my family, your families, to come together and at least to help bridge that gap and to say, look, think about how you would make somebody feel. Think about how you would feel. If you made fun of somebody, if you hurt somebody else. And that's how it starts. It's the theory is only the theory. It's how you apply. It's that empathy. How would it make you feel? A lot of people, they often don't think about that.
You're right. You're right. Absolutely. And again, I want to thank everybody joining in. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for opening my mind as well as everybody else's up to this ongoing issue. And I think one thing we can take away from this tonight and for the future is do not remain silent. Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to admit whether you were wrong or whether you think you're being wrong yourself. It's one of the most important things of this issue. And again, if you can't find anybody to talk to, call somebody to talk to them. There's so many different tools. If you follow Dr. Claudio, if you follow his page, he offered just in this 1 hour, he's held up his phone. He's given me apps that I didn't even know existed, to be honest with you. As well as I'm sure there's other people out there that are thinking the same exact thing. So he's very accessible. If you need to get in touch with him, please, and you can't, get in touch with me as well. You can follow me at, for Rise and React Media at Media Rise. Follow Dr. Cerullo at Dr. Claudio V. Cerullo on Twitter. TeachAntibullying.org, which is a great organization that we could get 2 hours just with the organization, Dr. C, about what you guys have done and what you continue to do. That'll be the subject for the next time we have this little one-on-one. And for everybody joining in, again, go check the book out. You will not be disappointed. And like I say on all my shows, as always, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you, Tom.